When you touch raw compost, good compost with your bare hands, it releases serotonin in your skin. It doesn't release it, you already have serotonin in your
Yes.
skin, it activates the
Yes,
neurons.
stimulates the
Exactly.
hormones, yes.
And you forget that good feelings in there. And that's what compost, if it does that to your skin, you can imagine what it's doing to your plants already. And you wonder, right, when you're in the garden, you go out harvesting, why do you feel so good? Okay, you smelled all that produce, you've been out in nature, but what is it about being out in nature?
Eyes open, hearts ready. Welcome to Wellness Deconstructed. I am Zia Jaffer, and together we're stepping into the arena of authentic well-being. Myth-busting, truth-seeking, and definitely life-changing. Break free, live boldly. It's time for a conscious uprising.
Welcome back to Wellness Deconstructed. Today, our guest is a seasoned permaculture designer, a profession he has dedicated himself to for several years. For the past 7 years, he has focused on 4 key areas: permaculture edible gardens, permaculture landscaping, degraded land rehabilitation, and mangrove reforestation. And that guest today is Suraj. Welcome, Suraj.
Thank you so much, Zia.
So just to let you guys know, he's the guy responsible for my entire poga patch in my house that I always keep talking about. And this is why I wanted you here, because I want your knowledge to create more awareness on why I got onto this journey and how you helped me and are still helping me through it. So let's get right into it, right? What is permaculture, to put it in a simple way?
So it's quite a long explanation if you ask about permaculture, and I'll try to shorten it down into a key element that's possible.
Okay.
If we look at permaculture, permaculture is actually not about farming, it's not about growing food, it's not about any of that. Those are elements as part of permaculture.
Okay.
Permaculture is a way that we use to design our lives to live in harmony with nature.
Wow.
That's it. So we apply it to the way we live, we apply it to our houses, we apply it to our food. Now, if you think about that, growing food is a key element to that, which is why that's so important.
Okay.
But in actual sense, it's all about designing our lives to live in harmony with Mother Nature. So we use a term called biomimicry quite a lot. And our inspiration comes from Mother Nature.
And it reminds me a lot of Ayurveda, because I always say that Ayurveda is a system, is a science of life that helps us live most in harmony with the nature, Mother Nature. So it's really cool that you're saying that it's also different practices that helps us align with the cycles of nature. Is that correct?
Yes, although permaculture, I mean, it's very crucial, I say Ayurveda. Ayurveda, as well as a lot of other traditional practices,
Yes.
pre-1900s have been the basis for permaculture.
Wow, okay.
So permaculture is a name that's basically been termed up by a guru called Bill Mollison in the 70s. And he basically went into the forest and realized why everything is thriving so well in the forest and why human systems are failing. And that's when he got the whole realization. So a lot of the principles and the origins of permaculture come from looking at how our ancestors used to do things pre-1900s, pre-industrialized revolution, and a lot so more pre-World War II, where we were actually living in harmony with the forest, living in harmony with nature, while getting all the resources that we needed from it.
That's great. So it's going back to the root culture of how
Exactly.
they lived sustainably also, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So what are the different aspects? You said like you focus on these 4 key areas, right? What made you choose those?
So the areas that I focus on are a broad area of permaculture. However, permaculture is much bigger than that.
Okay.
I've chosen these 4 areas because each one has a different significance and a passion that I personally have as well in what I do. So the first one is creating edible gardens. I've been growing food for quite a while. Ironically, the initial start that I did in growing food was I had a commercial farm. We used to grow chilies and strawberries. And I sprayed every single chemical that I could think about. Every time I see a pest, I would spray 2 chemicals to make sure that pest is no longer there. Anytime I see a slight bit of infertility, we'd go and dose the land with fertilizer. And the produce was great, but I didn't realize how much I was actually damaging the land and creating fake produce. It wasn't real. It looked good, sometimes tasted good, but it didn't have any natural benefits to it. It wasn't until we were fumigating one of the greenhouses and my guys actually came out crying. They had tears in their
Whoa.
eyes.
Because it was so strong,
The
like the dawa.
chemicals had actually gone into their eyes. They were coughing. It actually felt like tear gas
Whoa.
was just sprayed along there. And that's when it struck me that if this is the effect it's doing to the humans now,
Yeah.
imagine what it's doing to the ground underneath. I mean, I come from a Jain background and we completely believe in non-violence.
Yes.
And that's basically killing every single ground organism that was within the greenhouse in the name of growing food. And then I thought about it deeper, that all that stuff that's in the ground is going to seep it into the plant and it's going to be back in the food again and it's going to come back to us.
Yeah, and also
And-
like also the microorganisms that you're killing are important for the growth of those plants, right? Like you don't want to kill all of them. You just want to kill
Exactly.
the other ones, but of course correctly, not incorrectly.
So a pesticide doesn't choose A or B, right?
Yes.
It kills everything,
Yeah.
good or bad.
Yeah.
And that's where the issue comes in. I mean, we'll go much deeper into what you just said later on when we
Yes.
actually talk about the soil and the importance of that.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely it kills all of that. So that's when it actually got to me that what we're doing is, so I tried to move in a lot of organic practices, although it's very difficult to put the two and two together. Once we basically moved out from there and I started growing a lot of my food at home is when we really got into the actual systems of growing food in harmony with nature.
Yeah, and understanding also like
Exactly.
how the microbiome works, how it supports the plant, and how you can also create the right environment for them to thrive without killing the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Or killing the bad stuff, but without killing the good stuff.
So what we actually do is we don't even kill the bad stuff. We need all of them. So it's a circle of life, right? If we remove an enemy from the picture, what happens is that whoever will come and feed on them or whoever will feed off them will actually increase in number. So we'll have a complete imbalance. Or whoever was attacking them and keeping them in balance will now go away because you've removed them. And then when they do come back, they'll come back in such great numbers that you'll have a whole field full of the insects. So you've got to have that harmony in place. It's all about managing the right amounts in place. I mean, in your gardens, you will always see a few aphids. You'll always see a few whiteflies. That whole system has to be in check. If the aphids go away, our ladybugs will go away because baby ladybugs will eat the baby aphids and keep that cycle in check. So we do use organic practices like spray neem oil, but we also let nature try do its part.
Yeah, I love that. Like you need a balance of both to keep each other in check,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like yin and yang, right? It's the whole
Yeah.
balance of life.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love that. So, what, like you said, like how when you saw your people coming out with tears, like you realized how it might be affecting them and how it might be affecting the plants. So in this day and age, I'm eating organic produce most of the times, but widely available veggies and fruits are sprayed. What do you think are the effects of those on the human body? Can you?
So I'm not no doctor, but I
Yeah.
mean, in simple terms, if you think about what that spray does, that spray is gonna knock down that animal dead. It's gonna knock that pest down like completely dead. It's gonna suffocate its lungs completely, its whole respiratory system, and
Wow.
kill it.
Yeah, so a human is also
Right,
an evolved
so-
animal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we still have a lot of the common cells around there. However much they say that that produce is going to go out in, they call it a post-harvest interval. The amount of days you can harvest your, let's say, tomatoes after you spray the crop. That's 5 days, 7 days. Number one, we don't have any regulation systems in Kenya. So it's very difficult to know if people are actually listening to those and harvesting the second day or the third day after. Secondly, after 7 days, are we actually testing that that produce is still there? Are there no residues left in there? And we're consuming that so happily,
Yeah.
right? So it's really something to think about. It's really something to think about.
Yeah, and that brings me to my next question. Like when we buy, we're always told now to like wash it with baking soda and vinegar and stuff. But Do you think the dawa, the pesticide, gets absorbed into the fruit as well?
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's actually inside. I mean, what you're washing on outside is just
skin, right?
dirt and residue,
True.
right? A bit of spray residue here and there, but everything's either absorbed in or washed out.
Yeah.
So
So it's actually gone into the fruit and already like
Completely.
affected the composition,
Completely.
the nutrient composition, right?
yeah. Moving back to my farming days.
Yes.
Unfortunately, due to the land that I was farming on got developed, so we had to move out. So that's when I started growing a lot of my food at home. And I started experimenting with landscaping. And that's when I came across permaculture, which is basically a designing your own house how you want to for your own purpose. So growing your food in a certain way, having your landscape gardens in there, and having basically everything laid out how it's needed. And that was really cool because I was trying to do everything, but this sort of put a framework and a system into what I was doing, which I didn't really think there was.
Yeah.
And understanding that whole principle made me realize how important the soil is. I mean, till this day, our specialty and my work is on soil management. The minute you have a healthy, rich, living soil, a lot of what you put in will thrive and grow, as long as few other aspects are right as well.
Exactly.
And going back to Bill Mollison's story, he was in the forest, and the inspiration all comes from a forest. If we look at our forest, right, there is no gardener who's planted them, watered them, pruned them, fertilized, or done any of that,
Yeah.
right? But they're absolutely thriving. They're absolutely thriving.
They're the best color as well.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah? And there's things popping out, there's a small tree, there's a shrub. There is no bare soil, right? So looking at biomimicry, we got to see how can we take all of these events that happen in the forest and how can we mimic them and put them in our gardens. So let's look at all the things that happen in a forest. Number one, none of the trash that falls in a forest is ever taken out. I mean, I call it trash. It's black gold, right?
Yeah.
It's all organic stuff. Trees falling, animals droppings, dead animals, leaves, branches, and it's all just piling up, piling up, piling up. There's no gardener who goes and rakes all that out.
Yeah.
So if you imagine over 50 years, that's all broken down. What's breaking it down? Now this is where the whole underworld, underground economy comes in. There's species that range from, you can't even see them with your naked eyes, really tiny bacteria and fungi, and all beneficial. I mean, we say bacteria, people really think negative, but it's all beneficial bacteria and fungi, all the way to the larger critters that you can see.
Yeah.
So what happens is, all this material slowly decomposes. The fungi and the bacteria are the first guys to start breaking it down. Then you have the second level, the third level, they go to arthropods, then they go to larger insects, who basically are all eating each other in the food chain. So now if you look at underneath the soil, what's happening? It is really busy. Now this I'm talking about a forest, right?
Yeah.
So we have all sorts of insects, from really tiny ones to really big ones, who are all making that soil their home. They're all walking around burrowing holes, eating each other, pooping around, and that's basically created your whole natural fertilizer factory. It's created all the aeration that the soil needs, all the oxygen can penetrate through. Anytime it rains, that soil is so rich, it holds onto it. It doesn't allow it to absorb out. And that's why the forest can naturally regenerate itself over and over again.
So is that what you do at my place with the...
Yes,
the
I don't know if you
the
remember
compost?
asking me, why is there so many twigs and so much
Yeah.
rubbish on the top? I was like, no, this is not it. It will slowly break down and basically feed it up. And we're basically trying to protect that layer and keep it very rich. I mean, even if you put your hand in there and dig it up, you'll definitely find a few critters walking around.
Yeah, and it's
that's
so
all.
hot. Like, it gets really hot at some point, right?
So that's when we're making the compost.
Oh, okay,
And the
fine.
huge piles.
Oh,
So
okay,
when
fine.
we're making the compost, now as designers, we try to tweak what Mother Nature does in a better way. What she does over 50 to 100 years, we try to do in 3 months because we need to use that compost quickly in the garden.
Definitely.
So we basically stack it up in a pile, so it decomposes faster.
Okay.
It reaches a heat of about 70 to 80 degrees.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and then good to use.
So how can someone start doing that at home?
How to make compost?
Yeah.
It's very easy. All you need to do is collect all of your organic matter, and you basically make piles of brown and green matter. So brown matter is anything organic. It's basically called carbon that's dried up. So,
So leaves, twigs, everything.
yeah, but everything that's dried.
Okay.
So on your leaves, you'll have fresh green leaves and dried leaves.
Yes.
So you need all the dry ones. Newspaper will work, coffee grounds work. What else would work? Dried leaf clippings. And on the green side is anything fresh or anything from the kitchen. And you basically stack it up into layers. So you have a layer of dry, a layer of green, a layer of dry, a layer of green. Make it into a square 1 by 1 meter and raise it above the ground. So that's very critical. A lot of people dig a hole
Yeah,
and
that's what I
bury
was
it in
gonna
the
ask
ground.
you.
So what happens is we're trying to create an aerobic compost, which is full of oxygen, which promotes a positive bacterial growth. You know, we want the really good bacteria. When we create it underground, the water will sink, stay there, and will create an anaerobic bacteria, which is sometimes dangerous for your plants. So you're trying
It
to
also
think.
stinks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Compost is meant to smell fresh. It's meant to smell like real good earth, right? You know, like a forest soil. If you smell it, it should smell earthy. The minute it smells, it means there's bad bacteria in there, and it's an anaerobic compost, which is actually not good. Which is why you should never use fresh manure, which stinks. You should always use manure that's really decomposed out. It should have that earthy smell to it.
Very interesting. That's a great tip.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the ones that you make as well, we'll see that it's really broken down. It's got that earthy smell into it as well.
Yes, definitely. And I always see like piles of it when I go down. Some are being made, some are just being piled up. Like there's always a cycle going on, right?
Exactly. And moving on to cycle, what we're doing is we're trying to mimic the forest. I mean, you stay in a forest, but what happens in a forest? It's a zero waste system.
Yeah.
So we're growing food on your land. It goes into your kitchen. I mean, let's look at a cauliflower, right? We're eating the head. We have everything from the side. What happens to all of that? It goes back into the compost. It gets decomposed down, back into nutrients, feeds the soil, and that cycle carries on and on and on. Look at a traditional food system. You're eating from a food that's come from a farm, couple 10, 20, 100 kilometers away. You're paying for fuel to be moved from A to B.
Yeah.
It then comes in packaging. Oh my God, that's a whole another different ball game to go through.
Yeah.
Packaging that you cannot recycle.
Yeah.
Packaging that you have to throw away, that will cause more carbon, that will cause more pollution.
Yeah.
A lot of the produce has waste and is not fresh. You'll have to throw some of it away. So there's a lot of food waste that comes in that whole journey down. So it's a big difference that you make, right?
Definitely. I feel like in the transport and stuff, also like you're damaging the environment more with the fuel and stuff. And yeah, it just adds to the cost of the earth, I feel like, by the time it comes to you. And even when it comes to you, you don't know whether it's sprayed or not. So in spite of like, I feel like damaging the earth in so many different ways, still what you're eating, you are not sure if it's clean and if it's helping you or hurting you once it goes inside your system, right? I know we moved back to the soil, so the nutrients in the soil are the most important thing, right? Like you were saying.
Yes.
And then it goes to the crop.
Exactly. So researchers actually showed that crops that come out from a permaculture-based soil or a forest-based soil have 10 times more micronutrients than a chemical-based crop.
That's why my salad and my boga taste so much sweeter than the ones
You
I buy
feel that,
from
right?
outside.
You can
Yeah.
actually feel that flavorful in there.
Definitely.
And that's everything from the ground coming up naturally. There's no chemicals put in there. There's no pesticides put in there. And you can actually taste that.
The crunch is different. The color is like more vibrant, I feel like
Exactly.
sometimes. And yeah, it just tastes different. Like you can feel it. I thought it's just because I'm growing it on my own and it feels like that.
Well, growing it with love always helps.
Yeah.
The difference, other part is as well, what you buy in the shop, over the last 50 years, our crops have gone down to about 100 to 200 varieties to like 20 varieties. You only get crops that last long, that are able to withstand all the transportation. So you'll see a lot of things phasing out a little as well. A lot of the stuff that we grow is a lot of heirloom produce as well, which was there before GMO, which was the original produce. It may not look pretty. It may not always look that great.
Yeah, the shapes
but-
are off
Yeah,
sometimes.
but you've got the best flavors in there.
Yes.
They taste good and they're actually nutritious. I mean, that's before humans tried to be clever and intervene, right? And
Yeah.
change it around a bit. So
Yeah, and I feel like you brought out a great point about how it might look different. And I feel like when I used to go to the fruit shop, I would be like, this looks looks good, so it must be good, but when I started growing my own, like the carrots would come out deformed like that, or some weird ways, and I'm like, what is this looks so bad, but actually tastes so good. So like, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, kind of thing, right? And it's always not what looks good is good for your system.
100%. It's so unfortunate that modern marketing has actually convinced us
Yeah.
what is a good fruit or what is meant to look appealing. While in actual essence, I don't know if you remember the other day when you had that small onion, the flavor is much more, right?
Yes.
You get to harvest it when you want. You can appreciate the small flavor. You
Yeah.
can appreciate the larger one. There's different flavors that come across it as well. What you get in the supermarket is all graded down.
Yes, and it's all like one type only, so you're so conditioned to just looking at that shape or that color or that size being the most appropriate one, that when you look at other things, they might be actually sweeter and much more nutrient dense, but you're like, no, this is not good, because we're just
Exactly.
conditioned to look at it a
Exactly.
certain way, right? And so yeah, it was a lot of rewiring, to think differently and use a different approach to be able to understand that how this might actually be good for us, and also educating my kids on that. Like, I love that I have that opportunity to change their mindset now, because I know Kabir loves going to the garden and he loves harvesting and stuff, and he'll always bring like bananas, and I'm like, why have you brought such small bananas? And he was like, no, they're ready, but it can be small and you can still eat them because they're ripe. And I'm like, okay, fine. And they're definitely much sweeter than the ones we get outside. So yeah, I think that has been a really good growth process that we've been through and we're still going through, thanks to you.
You're welcome. It's always an evolving process, right? So there's also a reason why he enjoys it in there as well. When you touch raw compost, good compost with your bare hands, it releases serotonin in your skin. It doesn't release it. You already have serotonin in your
Yes.
skin. It activates the
Yes,
neurons.
stimulates the
Exactly.
hormones, yes.
And you forget that good feelings in there. And that's what compost, if it does that to your skin, you can imagine what it's doing to your plants already.
Yeah.
And you wonder, right, when you're in the garden, you go out harvesting, why do you feel so good? Okay, you smelled all that produce, you've been out in nature, but what is it about being out in nature? And this is one of the main reasons, right? Grounding as well. I know you go barefoot as well, and that's amazing because you actually release all of your negative energy, and it basically rebalances all that positivity and charges you up again. So you've gone out barefoot, you're touching everything with bare hands, and that's what we as humans were meant to do. We weren't meant to wear shoes. We weren't designed for that, right? All that is a change that has come post 1900s.
Yeah.
We were meant to be out. We were meant to touch, feel, go out there. I
Yeah,
mean,
get our
we're
hands dirty.
exactly we're traditional hunters and gatherers.
Yeah.
That's where we all came from.
Yeah.
If you look back, and that disconnect from all of that, I feel has a huge cause to a lot of the issues that we're facing in a wide macroscope, right? In a complete macro way.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you brought up grounding, because I always talk about it all the time, right? That like, get yourself like out there barefoot in the garden, but like getting your hands dirty and just getting your produce out is a whole another fulfillment that adds to that grounding experience for sure. And I love doing that, and I'm so glad that my kids get to do that as well and start at such a young age. And I feel like we all should do it. I feel like in schools they should start teaching kids about growing their own produce, like
Definitely.
it should be a part of their curriculum, how to connect back to earth, but also how to, I feel these are the skills we need to learn, like not history and all these other things that don't really help us in the long run, but these are skills that, yeah, our kids need from a young age to know what to grow when, how, where, and how, in what kind of environment, right? Thank you for that. Let's move to the other one you said, permaculture landscaping. How is that different from normal landscaping? I know you touched a little bit on it while you were
Sure.
saying about that.
So your traditional landscaping is very clear cut. Everything goes in a lot of straight lines. A lot of soil is just put down. Gardens are planted up, and it's more with aesthetics rather than anything else. Actually, it's purely aesthetics.
Yeah.
When you look at permaculture landscaping, we're basically taking the principles of permaculture and creating a garden around it. So we're creating something that will work in harmony with nature. We're going to have a lot of polyculture, right? A lot of mixed plants mixed around. We'll try mix it in that it looks like a forest and everything functions in together. We don't need to have a lot of resources that go in to manage the garden, but in return, it gives you a lot of output back out from it. So it's mixing a whole edible garden. You have a lot of fruit trees going around there. It's basically your homesteading lifestyle around
So is
there.
that what we're doing at my house? It's called...
We're doing a blend of it.
Okay.
We're doing a blend of it.
Okay.
We have traditional landscaping going on,
Yes.
and then we
Yeah.
also have permaculture landscaping
Okay.
going on as well, where if you look at your garden beds in the front of the house leading to the garden, that are not actually flowers, but we have chilies and tomatoes growing there.
Yes.
Right? So it's purposeful as well. So
Yeah.
there's a mix and a blend of both.
And it looks
So-
pretty also when
So
they're
that's what we
flowering.
try to do it as well. We
Yeah.
try to mix in the true aspects of permaculture. Because if you look at a true permaculture garden, it is wild. Things are just popping out everywhere. It's regenerating. It will seed. It will die back. It will fold itself. Because a true permaculture garden is a lazy garden. It is a garden that you will manage yourself with no additional help. You'll go there a few times a year, harvest the fruits, store them long term, keep them going on, go there every day in the morning, pick up what you need, and it's really a lazy garden. A lot of stuff like composting happens on site. We'll
Yes.
have bigger trees growing around there, we'll chop them up and just drop them right there. So we're trying to mix and match there, two together.
What are the first steps that someone can take to start a permaculture edible garden?
So number one is start growing your own food immediately. Don't be scared to have the right soil. Get a few seeds, look at some easy growing produce. Red radish grows in 30 days. Coriander grows in 60 to 75 days. So look at some few easy produce, start growing them immediately. Secondly, make some good quality compost. I've already given you the basic steps as well. And it's not difficult. And if you don't have compost, there's a lot of compost that's readily available for purchase. So get some good quality compost and make a few good garden beds. You can even use containers if you don't have any space for a garden, and put in a few seeds, start growing it. A lot of people will really go into detail. They want to have a big garden. They want to have everything set up. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
The minute you start and you start understanding what's going on, that's when you get addicted to it, and that's when you really start going deeper into it.
Yeah, I guess, and when you taste it also, you know how different it is from what you buy from the market, so you want to do it more and more and more,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So you said radish and coriander. What are the other ones that you can start with quickly, like herbs?
So if you look at herbs, it all depends on what you need, but
Okay.
all the herbs are very easy to grow. So we look at lavender, rosemary, sage, mints, basil, chives, oregano. That is probably what would make our basic kitchen garden.
Yeah.
And from there on, we can actually add on anything else that is needed.
And
as
those
well.
are the easiest to grow, right?
Exactly.
But do we have to keep them in shade or sun, or they
We have a
thrive?
mixture.
Okay.
So from what I mentioned, the mints would grow in the shade,
Okay.
and the rest would grow well in full sun.
Okay. So mint you can even grow on the windowsill kind of thing,
Exactly, and
right?
keep it near your kitchen as well. Cut a few leaves exactly when you need it. I mean, great for putting in salads and making a mint tea, right?
Definitely. Thanks for sharing that. Before I take you to the land rehabilitation, because I know that there's a lot to go in there, I wanted to take you back to when you said that you started this out of your passion for these areas. So tell me your story about how you discovered that passion and what led you to getting into permaculture.
Sure. So that's an interesting story. I was in commercial farming, I think I stopped about 12 years ago.
Okay.
And that was my initial start of actually understanding how to grow food and how to get into it. And, like you say, how amazing is it to grow your own food? You go in there, you pick up what you want. At any time, you've probably got enough in there to make up a quick meal. The fruit spot is lovely, right? I've got trees which have been planted by my grandparents. We've got a jackfruit tree which was there before they moved in, so we're estimating it's about over 100 years old,
Wow.
and it's thriving in abundance. So if you look at the food systems in place and you do the right things, it is providing to you in abundance, literally in abundance. There's sometimes more than we have to even give out. We give out to the neighbors, we pass it on. If you like any, please let me know, and we'll send you some over as well.
For sure.
And once you understand that and understand how critical that is, it just made me realize that, you know what, there's actually a market for this, and there's going to be more people who are thinking along these lines. It's not only me. A lot of people visiting me at home at that time would be, really interested about it. They'd always take home a doggy bag of veggies as well, whatever we have in excess, and they'll really appreciate that. I mean, sometimes more than a bottle of wine or anything like that. Then I started doing it in reverse. Anytime I started going to people's houses, I'll take a plant, take something like that. And that's when you see people's appreciation. People really appreciate homegrown, clean produce.
Wow. So you started with commercial farming and then moved to this.
Yeah, so commercial was my actual entry into growing food.
Okay.
The change into organic farming was when I actually realized what the damage was and how much beneficial that we have in there.
Yeah.
Although I don't use the term organic, we prefer to use the term regenerative. Organic has a bit of a sham on it recently. There's a lot of people using organic just as a marketing name and overusing the term. So we like to be more regenerative. Very similar to sustainable as well. We don't use the term sustainable. So regenerative is more where we're at. I mean, even if you look at it, right? Are we here to sustain or are we here to regenerate?
Regenerate.
Think about it, right?
Yeah.
We want to regenerate and generate and grow and be better.
Yeah, and leave a better world for the future generation, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it
From
needs
what
to
we
be
came in.
regenerative. Yeah.
So that's why we tend to then fray away from sustainability. Sustainability to me just means like, okay, you must sustain things as they are. Things aren't that great to sustain.
True.
They need a change. And they need that actual positive change coming in.
Yeah, I love that reframing. It changes a lot. Like it changes your perspective towards the practices that you adopt, right?
Yeah.
Really great. Thank you. So let's move to the land rehabilitation and mangrove reforestation. I know, like, when I heard about it, I'm like, wow, I want to know more about it because I always hear when we go towards the creek and stuff, like my husband always like, mangroves are dying, like, you can see like literally like the space is increasing. So when I heard you saying that, I'm like, wow, get onto my podcast and then you tell me everything about it, So tell me, what is it? What is it that you do in relation to rehabilitating the land?
So all this started off about a year ago when I was approached by Mombasa Cement and they needed some assistance in reforesting their quarries. So they are mining limestone, and limestone is one of the key ingredients for producing clinker.
Okay.
And once they've removed all the limestone, they've basically left a massive hole in the ground, which at some cases is 20 to 30 meters deep.
Wow.
We're close to the ocean, and we're basically getting a lot of salt water penetrating in at the bottom. So a lot of the reforestation activities that they did initially didn't work well. So as a permaculture designer, we basically look at how would have nature solve this problem. And understanding the whole area, looking at everything, looking at the salt water there, we came to the conclusion that mangroves would be one of the best species to grow there. While doing my research for mangroves and actually going into it is what led to our next topic, which will be the mangrove reforestation, is when we actually realized that people, not in the quarry now, but people outside who are actually planting the mangroves were just doing a numbers game. They really wanted to plant up mangroves just to show on either their social media pages or report in the newspaper that today we've planted X number of mangroves. When they actually come to the realization of it, mangroves are planted in the wrong place, they had wrong species planted, and a couple months later, about over 80% of the mangroves were dead.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that led me to mangrove reforestation. So back to our degraded land rehabilitation. We basically help them convert the area into a forest.
I love that, like, it's regenerative again, right? Like they've used it and then you want to regenerate it.
Exactly.
The word is in my head now for
It's,
everything.
you know what? You can apply that to any part of your life. I mean, that's what we want to do, right?
Yeah.
You want to regenerate. You want to be better you are next year than you were last year. We're always about regeneration. I mean, cosmetic marketing uses that term really, really nicely, right? There's what, skin regeneration and all of that. They use that term perfectly. That's in every single aspect that you can.
Yeah. Sorry, you can
No
continue.
worries.
Just like it kept coming to my
So
brain.
I'll share some photos.
Yeah.
And if you look at the quarry, what it was before, it's literally just a hole in the ground. What we have now there is we've basically planted under 100,000 mangroves in an area of 55 acres,
Wow.
and the landscape has completely changed around. We have over 4 different species of mangroves growing there, and we've done all different types of test methods, and the results are looking really, really positive.
That's amazing.
And over the next 10 years, we're looking to turn that back into a natural forest where you'll not be even able to tell that there was mining activities going on there.
That's wonderful.
I mean, it's super. Mangroves are lovely, right? I mean, we have them out here as well. They're such stunning trees. And but if you look at the actual benefits that they're providing to the environment, is huge. They capture over 5 times more carbon in their roots than traditional trees. An average mangrove over its lifespan will capture 300 kilograms of carbon and just sequester it in the ground.
Is the number more because they're close to the ocean?
Yeah, and salt water just holds it down and it doesn't allow it to basically penetrate back up again. So it's just all held into the ground as stock.
And they help retain the soil as well, right?
Their benefits are huge. This is just one of their benefits.
Yeah.
So if you talk about mangrove benefits, they'll help retain the soil.
Yeah.
Over 2/3 of the fish caught in the ocean have started off in the mangrove forest. So all the juvenile fish, they basically all start off in the mangroves. If you imagine all the prop roots, right, they're all propping onto each other, and that's a perfect hiding spot for all the tiny marine life and go through there.
It creates like a perfect web
Yeah.
for them, right?
And they also got protection, right, from the predators. And once they're big enough to basically move out to the open ocean, that's when they make their way down.
Yeah. So you're through growing the mangroves, you're also rehabilitating the marine life,
Exactly.
Right.
Or restoring it as well.
restoring.
Yeah. And then unfortunately, mangrove also has a huge commercial building use, which is why mangrove deforestation is at its peak at the moment. I mean,
What do they use it for? Sorry.
so from all the species of mangroves in Kenya, so from even the 4 that we're planting, there is one species that's the most dominant in Kenya, and that's called Rhizophora mucuranta. And that's also known as a red mangrove, and it's a straight poles. So it's used in a lot of construction industry, and it's also used traditionally in boat building. We were exporting, the local traders at the time were exporting mangroves along with slaves and everything else from 1300s. So mangroves, unfortunately, have been harvested for quite a long time. But as we mentioned, hopefully up to the 1900s, all the harvest was done sustainably. They would look at a tree, take a pole, cut it down, move 3 trees, and take another pole.
Okay.
I was in Matwapa the other day in a mangrove forest, and when you on the boat, you're basically cruising through the canals. It looks stunning because all you see is green mangroves on either side of you. Zia, the minute I got off the boat, I didn't even walk 5 minutes, and it's complete destruction. They have chopped down every single Rhizophora there, and there's only the other 2 or 3 other species which are there. And you can see that whole destruction down in the forest all the way through. So
And no one's saying anything about this.
it's no one saying anything about it. It's completely hidden. I mean, a lot of facts are not really talked about, right?
Yeah.
We have another fact that's going about is the number of trees being cut down in Kenya every day.
Yeah.
This is a very, very...
It's disturbing to hear.
It's disturbing, I know,
Yeah.
but the figure I'm telling you is it's not even a realistic figure. I think it's a very underestimated figure. 200,000 trees every day are being
Wow.
cut down.
So 2 tree planting days a year are not enough, right?
No, we need to be planting every
Every
day,
day,
right?
yeah.
Every day.
Yeah,
So-
definitely. But I guess it's because of the wood, right? And then the demand for furniture and all these things is increasing because the population is increasing. We're stuck in like a vicious cycle of like demand and supply, right? And in all of this, like I feel the Mother Earth and nature is the one that is taking all the beating.
Unfortunately so. But then if they all come back down to us, right? We are the biggest population in terms of species.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but the most dominant.
Yeah.
So
The most destructive.
that's 100%.
Yeah. My husband always said we are like the cancer to the planet.
We are though.
Yeah.
We are though, if you think about it. Everything that we've been doing
Yeah.
is actually really destructing the planet.
Yeah, we're literally
So-
like killing the planet slowly, like one day at a time. But we're just so many that we've.
So
Yeah.
I'm
so
going
sad.
back three
Please.
topics, and the three principles of permaculture are basically earth care, people care, and fair share. Right? Earth care. I don't need to explain that.
Yeah.
People care. I don't need to explain that. Fair share is where people get really confused. And in simple terms, it's all about you always give back what you take from the earth.
Yeah.
Right? So if you look at what we've been doing in the past as humans, not us,
Yes.
you look at everything that we've been doing is we've just been abusing the earth. Whatever
Definitely.
minerals, whatever earth, whatever oil, we've just been taking. Right? Any single thing that is there, we've just been taking
Yeah.
without any replenishment back. And that's where all of our principles of permaculture also come into play. So if we're looking at our garden, we're taking all of the nutrients out of the soil, putting it into the plants that we need for food,
Yeah.
right? But we're also re-mulching and we're also replenishing Mother Earth and keeping that cycle going on
I love
naturally,
that.
right?
Yes.
So you always got to keep that. So that's why that mulch is now really important, because that's now replenishing that soil, which then breaks down into nutrients and keeps it going down.
Yeah, and that reminds me, like you always tell me, like one patch is always going to stay empty in your garden because it's replenishing at that time, right? Regenerating also. Like it takes me back to that word. That's really good. I really like that cycle. I didn't think about it like that. So like if I'm taking from the earth, I'm also giving back.
You always have to give back.
Yeah.
Otherwise we're abusing, right?
Definitely.
I mean, at the end of the day, we may own this land, but for how long? What's our lifespan?
True.
80, 100 years if we're lucky. So we're technically we don't own anything here,
Yeah.
right? We're just temporary, pure, in a tiny spectrum of things. We're just here for a very tiny fraction of the time. So it's all about how to take care of it so it's better. I mean, you said that earlier on as well. How to keep the place, how to keep our earth better for the next generation to
Exactly.
take it on
Yeah.
and to prosper from.
Yeah, because I get worried for my kids. Like right now, we're being so selfish and constantly taking, like robbing the earth of its natural resources, whether it's in the form of oils or nutrients or polluting it with plastic. Like I know the other day they were digging next to the pond, and then there was literally plastic bottles in the soil. And seeing it made me feel so upset. I'm like, there's already plastic in there. Like you're digging up now and there's bottles in there. God knows how long they've been there for, but they're not going to degrade for God knows how many hundreds of years.
Yeah,
Or
and we
ever
made it.
degrade. Yeah, and we are like contributing to all of this. And every time I see these things, I'm like, my kids, like what kind of world are we leaving for our kids, right? And what you said makes me really happy that like what we're doing, what you are helping me do at home is what we're taking, we're giving back. So we're doing the fair share bit for the earth and being as conscious as possible in how we use and how we consume at the same time, right? Great, thank you. That was such
No
a
worries.
good conversation.
I know, but although we're talking about mangroves and we step back to this because you
Yeah.
were talking about a point, and I think that fair share was really important, right?
Yes.
Just to understand how we're going to take care of the earth.
Yes.
So it's not about just taking.
Yeah.
See what you can give back, see how you can give it back. But yeah, I mean, with this trash problem and everything, it's a real problem.
It might be
I was-
affecting the mangroves too, right? Like all the trash
100%.
that
I've been kayaking down here, along here, and you
Yeah.
can see the mangrove roots, and
they must be like catching on to stuff also, right?
yeah,
Like
there's
stuff that gets washed off.
I'm not allowed to swear, am I?
It's fine, you can swear.
Okay, those vegetable nets.
Yeah.
So
oh my god.
we went
I was
ahead
just
and
telling you
replaced
guys.
one problem with an absolute another problem.
Yeah.
You went ahead and removed plastic bags, replaced it with vegetable nets, and if you look at all the mangrove roots, all they do is covering them around and holding them up. That's going to suffocate it. That's not going to help it grow. It's not going to degrade down.
Yeah. And that's why now when I go to vegetable shops, I'm like, I don't need this. Either you give me a brown bag or I bring my own kikapu. So guys, this is something that we need to stop doing. Please do not pick those vegetable plastic nets because you see what's happening. There's like person that has seen it firsthand and we're really destroying our oceans with it, and it's not doing us any good. Please take a kikapu with you, or a recyclable tote bag from Green Thing Kenya, or pick a brown bag. Please. Thank you.
Now, there's more to add to that as well, yeah?
Sure.
So, what's the concept of taking something that Mother Nature has created in a perfectly biodegradable container, right? That can stay for a week, and then we cut it up and pour that into plastic just to take home.
Yeah.
Have you seen that crazy trend going around of coconut water in a plastic bottle?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just explain to me that how that works.
They even give it in cans, right? Like in tins.
Cans is now taking it like
Okay.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
But they cut it in front of you, where you could easily take it home,
Okay.
right? And even enjoy that beautiful Malayan there, right? You miss all of that.
Just holding it, like it's
Yeah,
nice
having a
and
little
cold
bit
as
spill
well.
over over you
Yeah.
as well. It's part of the whole experience.
Yeah.
You're putting it in a bottle. The minute it goes in a bottle, it's not oxidation, but it starts going milky. I've actually had coconut water which has stayed for a while and it's actually gone off.
Yeah.
So I'm
Starts
sure that's
fermenting
exactly
also.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's not good for you as well.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
add on all of these things as well. How are these practices still happening?
I mean, I don't understand. People know that this is not, I mean, I'm sure people know, right? Like, that this is not the right way to do things.
I think it's just we're lazy and we're used to convenience and we're used to having things right there and there. Like you said, you may remember to take your green things bag when you go shopping,
Yeah.
but if people actually keep that as a habit and keep that as a practice that they do, always have the bags in there. If you want to get a coconut, no problem. I mean, there's so many different options. Get a glass bottle, take it there, they'll pour it in for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, coconut is amazing, right?
Yeah.
The waste of the coconut is great fertilizer for your garden as well.
Yeah.
So coconut as a whole, I mean, I would take the guy, give me all your empty coconuts as well. I need them for my garden, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really crazy on how we're trying to change things and try and make it more convenient, but you're actually damaging yourself.
Yeah, like when I went to India, it just reminded me, I was so upset. I went to 2 weddings in the last 6 months, no, not the last year, I think. And they just give those like little bottles of soda and little bottles of water so that one person can have one. And I'm like, guys, you're wasting so much plastic. I'm so proud of Kenya for having like taken steps like to reduce plastic. And that's when I'm like, I'm so proud to be Kenyan now. I'm not Indian anymore. Because even when we go to the lodges or restaurants, they have plastic bottle. They have glass water bottles. In India, you cannot find them. Whether it's the soda bottles or water bottles, you just don't find them. Even for like tissues, they give those little ones in the plastic. I'm like, guys, what are you doing? You have no idea how much. And there's like, what, 800 people in a wedding? Drinking like 3 bottles of water at a time? How much waste are you creating? And throwing stuff everywhere. So there's garbage, waste, but you also don't understand that this is not going anywhere. It's all going into the oceans. And in fact, here, half the year, when the wind is blowing this way, which is now, all the trash gets washed up onto our beach. And the amount of plastic that we used to have, okay, it's reduced now, but the amount of plastic we used to have was, like, you can't even take one step without seeing a plastic.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, because you're also on the same line, yeah.
I was kayaking out there and literally you're going through trash up to a point where I had to pick it up, go into the jetty and launch it from the other side where you're basically away from all of that. So
Yeah, I literally had to hire 2 people and they would collect sacks and sacks of plastic on a
really.
daily basis. When I built the house here, I had for 6 months.
But every day it comes back.
Every single day, because when the wind is blowing this way, it washes off from Old Town and everywhere. It washes off this way. So yeah, it was bad.
Interesting. One of my friends at Mombasa Cement has actually made a really cool tool. It's called a beach cleanup tool. So it's a massive, how to explain? It's a massive trough which has a lot of holes in there. So all the sand gets filtered out and it basically collects all the debris as you're raking it along.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool.
I'll bring it over here. It'll be good to help
for
clean this
sure.
up.
And I think now it's gonna start coming back again,
Again,
because the wind has turned. Yeah.
Nice. So
God.
we were actually on our mangroves.
Yeah.
And we keep jumping back to food, but it's nice. Everything is related if you look about it.
Yeah.
We're all it's all part of one thing, right? The trees are there providing the whole atmosphere, the protection, the forest, the soil, and all of that as well.
So tell me more about the project that you're doing right now at Mombasa Cement.
Sure. So we're actually in the process of finishing a test project where we've rehabilitated 55 acres of a limestone quarry.
Yeah.
So in this quarry, there was already a lot of trees that had grown, mainly Costerina, and then we've added in a lot of mangrove species there. And we did a test project where we tested different types of mangroves in different scenarios. So I'll give you an example of what we did. Looking at permaculture, we basically look at how nature works, right? And if you look at how mangroves grow in nature, mangroves generally grow along the river estuaries leading to the ocean, or in flat creeks. And that basically has two conditions. It is a place where it's not exposed to a lot of tidal action, it's very calm, and it's brackish water, or full salty water as well. And if you look at the way a river creek is and what the ocean is, we basically tried to simulate that and made natural river creeks in the quarries. So
Wow,
we'd have
that's
a
cool.
massive pond and we'd have a bed of soil working as a river creek, making sure we don't obstruct the water going through.
Yeah.
And along those is where we managed to plant the mangroves.
Wow.
One of the other triads, which is really interesting and we're really looking forward to it, is where we created a really dense natural forest. There is a Japanese arborist called Miyawaki, and he's created the Miyawaki method. And that means you plant 4 to 5 trees in 1 meter square to make a really dense forest. So in 10 years' time, no human being can actually go in there, and it's a thick forest which allows all the animals the protection that they need.
Yeah.
And we've taken his principles and used that for the first time, which has never been done, in mangroves.
Amazing.
And it's so far it's looking so good because we're already getting a lot of the connection growth in there.
And then you're creating the density already, right?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Our success is going to be generated by the amount of biodiversity we actually attract into the quarry now. The fact that we have all of these mangroves in there, we're seeing a huge number of bird life increase completely.
Wow.
We had a species of bird lay some eggs there as well.
Amazing.
And it was really amazing. It was right in the middle of the ocean, in between some mangroves that we planted, and we really suspect it was trying to get away from or protect its nest from the reptiles around it. But the location it had chosen, it was like a photo opportunity.
That's so beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
it must be so fulfilling to watch these things, right?
It's
like,
amazing. I mean, working there does not feel like you're working, right?
Yeah.
First of all, you're in a land that looks completely alien. You feel like you're in no place in Kenya at all. The ocean is so close by, it's only 50 meters away. And so sunset and sunrise are the two most spectacular times.
I
They're
can
so
imagine.
beautiful. You can actually see things in such a calm manner, and it's a whole different life pre 6 o'clock and post 6 o'clock, either way.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, for the mangrove reforestation project that you're doing, are you looking for funding, or like if people want to contribute to it, is there a way that they can help you, or?
Sure. So the mangrove reforestation that we're doing is basically running from Kwale going down to Lamu.
Yes.
And we're looking to pledge to plant 7 million mangroves
Okay.
over the next 7 years.
Okay.
Yes, we have pledged some of our own fundings, but we are also looking for support as well.
Okay, so they can reach out to you if they want to contribute
Exactly,
to it in
exactly.
any way, like whether it's financial, or they want to contribute to it by giving their expertise or helping you in some way as well. That's
Sure.
okay too,
We're
right?
open to all sorts of contributions. I mean,
Okay.
at the end of the day, we're doing this to help reforest
That's
our
it.
mangrove forests that are being cut down.
Yeah, thank you for doing this on behalf of all of us
welcome.
and taking this initiative. And for being here and sharing all of this. I feel like I've learned so much from you, and I'm sure everyone that will watch this will be really, really, really enlightened with this awareness. But before we close, I generally ask, I do a rapid fire where I ask questions, quick questions for the audience to get to know you a little better.
Sure.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to start their own garden?
Just go to a nursery, pick up plants, bung them in your booth, and start planting.
Okay.
There's no better way to do it than starting. Make all the mistakes you need to. Don't be scared. We've all been there. You may kill a plant, you may burn a plant, you may not plant it in the right way. But if you don't go ahead and do it, you won't learn, right? The minute you start doing it, you'll start researching, you'll start understanding, you'll start knowing,
Yeah.
and you'll basically grow into a better gardener.
Amazing.
Or if you need any help, you can always call us.
Of course. I know you are into kayaking and stuff, but what's your daily non-negotiable for your wellness?
So, my morning starts really early. I wake up at 4 o'clock, and my morning starts with a meditation if possible. However, in case of any late start, sometimes the meditation may skip. My workout is something I cannot miss every day, and that basically goes on for another hour after that.
Amazing.
And once I've done that is when basically my day can start off.
That's great. So waking up early is like at the top of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Do you prefer sunrise or sunset?
Ooh, both are lovely, but if I was to choose one, sunrise.
What's your favorite hobby? Apart from gardening.
I was just gonna say it's really like we'll leave gardening aside.
Yeah.
You mentioned kayaking. Kayaking is something I've really gotten into.
Yeah.
It's so amazing, right, to be out in nature.
Yeah.
So a lot of nature-based activities
Okay.
is amazing. Walking out in the beaches, walking out in the forests, kayaking along the ocean, and anything nature-based is something that I basically really go to.
Great. What's your favorite type of workout?
Ooh, I mix in everything. So I start off with yoga, then I move to calisthenics, then I move to powerlifting. And I think if it has to be a blend of all three.
I love that. I know you do a lot of juicing because we've spoken about this, right? So what juice mix would you recommend?
So I grow the ingredients, but there's other people who help juice it out for me.
Of course.
But if we look at one of the main ingredients is wheatgrass is really cool. We've got a new plant called the insulin plant, which I've got to put at your place as well, which basically helps reduce and balance your insulin levels, as well as if you're asthmatic, it also helps with that. It also has a very nice lime flavor as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So a bit of that in as well, and generally any other leafy greens that you like, If you feel you've got any digestive issues, you can put a bit of mint, you can put a bit of turmeric in there, you can put a bit of ginger in there, basil leaves, and spinach as well.
Nice. Thank you. What's your daily mantra? Like life mantra? Not daily mantra. What's your life mantra?
Wake up, take the world one day at a time, be happy, and take it on.
Amazing.
Life is too short sometimes, and we try to focus on things that sometimes don't really matter, right?
Yeah.
So if it's not going to be important a couple years from now, it's not important to worry about.
Yeah. And what's one thing that everyone should grow in their garden?
Wow.
One thing.
One thing that everyone should grow in their garden. I can't answer that. I really can't answer that. I have a collection of over probably 500 different varieties of plants at home, and I couldn't live without any one of them. So I don't think you can ask me that question. What is one plant? Wow, that's a tough question here. That's a
Maybe
really
like
tough
a
question.
herb. I would say I can't pick one, two.
I would say coffee because I can't start my day without coffee.
That's a
So
good
I would
one.
say, yeah, coffee would be the one.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, that's just my daily start, right?
Yeah.
But that's the only reason to that.
Thank you. And what's one last piece of advice that you'd like to leave the person that is watching this with?
So always understand the impact of what you're doing, right? And every action has a reaction, positive or negative. Just focus your thoughts, focus your energies on the positives, and let the negatives be there. Focus your energy on that, keep it going on, and you'll see a whole different impact to the way the world actually comes back at you.
Definitely. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. We have a little gift for you as a token of appreciation
Thank you
for
so much.
being here and contributing to our podcast.
Thank you so much. That is lovely.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching yet another episode of Wellness Deconstructed. This one was so powerful. I learned so much from it. I hope you did too. Remember, like, comment, share, and subscribe because your support means everything to us. And a big thank you to our gift sponsors for this season, Oyana, Green Thing Kenya, and Jars of Goodness. Until next time, keep prioritizing your well-being.